Welcome everyone. This is class 4 of the 10-week series, and I wanted to let you know that I am recording these and I will be putting them up on YouTube, but not until the whole 10-week series is done, so then all of them will go up at the same time. I know some of you have asked me for prior sessions, and if you really have a need for them, I can send you the raw unedited Zoom link before I put the YouTube link that's edited up later. So I just wanted to mention that. So we are continuing our journey into yoga psychology today. Class number 4 honors the third limb of yoga. The third limb of yoga is the asana practice, or the movement practice of yoga. And our theme today is an exploration of what in Sanskrit is called the gunas. And I personally don't really find a satisfying translation for this into the English, so that's why I'm mentioning the word gunas. But it can be described as the expressions of nature, or you could describe it as temperaments. So different ways of looking at it, but it's basically your style of showing up in the world. And there are 3 different ways in which you can show up in the world. It's sort of like a coping style, maybe, too. And you have access to all 3. In fact, modern neuroscience is showing us you are literally hardwired in your autonomic nervous system to be able to respond from any one of those 3 styles. The fact is, however, that we tend to develop preferences for one way of showing up in the world over another. And a lot of this has to do with childhood experiences throughout your life that sort of shape and condition how you respond and react to the world. So you'll probably see yourself in all 3 of those. My guess is you'll end up with one where you'll say, oh yeah, okay, this is where I spend most of my time. So the first one in Sanskrit is called rajas. You might call this a style that is sort of activating or able of creating movement or motion. This is, in modern neuroscience, your sympathetic nervous system response. So you learn this style through having to deal with challenge by either fighting against it or fleeing from it or somehow activating so that you can cope with that particular threat or challenge. So it's a very active style. It gives you energy, it gives you passion, but it can also make you kind of driven or even agitated or kind of manic-y. And so the key, just as we talked about last week, in terms of this sort of motion-based way of being in the world, is to find a nice balance there of having enough activation that you can deal with the challenge of day-to-day life, because we have it from the moment your alarm clock goes off in the morning until you have to deal with some crisis at home at night. So finding that middle way between being agitated and activated, but having enough capacity to get yourself out there to meet what life throws at you. The second way of being in the world in Sanskrit is called tamas, and you might call this mass or grounding. And this is your capacity to be still. So you have motion on the one hand, and then you have stillness on the other hand. This is your capacity to ground or be stable, and to meet life's day-to-day challenges by settling into yourself. Now, at the extreme, this might mean that you collapse in despair and you can't move. That's sort of the extreme expression. You become, lethargic, even dissociated, right? In the modern science language, this would be called your dorsal vagal space of your parasympathetic nervous system. You do not have to remember this. But it's a place where you can, if you find balance, find the capacity to recharge, recuperate, repair. But it's also the place where if it goes to an extreme, like I said, you collapse, you dissociate, you just sort of turn away from the world. Rather than meeting challenge, you dissociate from it. The third style in Sanskrit is called sattva, and we might translate that as luminosity, as being sort of alive and stable with whatever shows up, and being able to harness all of the resources that you have in your body, in your breath, in your mind, to meet life as it unfolds. In the modern vernacular, this would be called your ventral vagal space of your parasympathetic nervous system. This is the place where you connect to other human beings or other mammals, really. You connect to other beings to reground yourself, to restabilize yourself, to find your center, and to meet challenge with the right mix of activation and grounding, so that you come into a sense of harmony with whatever is. And you are capable of connecting to other people through a variety of means. And so these are sort of the three ways that nature expresses itself, is through this activation, this capacity to move, through stillness, the capacity to ground, or even to collapse if necessary, and then the capacity to be kind of luminous and stable, neither drawn to either the hyperactive nor the hypoactive style. What I really love about the gunas is that the yogis came up with this concept more than 2,000 years ago, and then modern science really only has caught up with this in the last decade. And so the modern science words that I'm using come from Stephen Porges, who really was kind of the first person who recognized that we have these three parts in our autonomic nervous system. For many, many decades, we really just thought about the sympathetic nervous system response and the parasympathetic. And now we realize that there are these two very separate responses in the parasympathetic that are tamas and sattva, that are that capacity to both be still and that capacity to be stable. And those are really very different. So we will play with this idea of finding balance, of noticing what your preferred nature is, how you tend to show up in the world, and then how you might cultivate this more luminous state of sattva, this connected ventral vagal state that allows you to be in relationship, that allows you to have clarity of mind, that allows you to have health in the body, and that allows you to harness your resources most fully. So we'll start with a centering today that involves a breathing practice, and this breathing practice is called alternate nostril breathing. There's a hand position that you'll need for this. I'm going to show you this before we actually move into the breathing practice so that you can see what it looks like. What you will do, and I'll come a little bit closer to the camera so you can see this on my hand, what you'll do is you'll fold in your peace fingers, and then you'll actually use your thumb and your middle finger to alternately close one or the other nostril. Now there are two, well, there are probably lots of different ways that you can do this. One way is to bring the finger to the bottom of your nostril to close it off like this. Another way is to lightly press the side. For me, this is a little bit easier. It's a little more intuitive, but whatever works for you. And you can do this with your right hand or your left hand, right? So if you're left-handed, then it's the same thing, right? So I will cue which nostril you will close and you will decide how you will do it, but this is your option. And then if that doesn't work for your fingers, you can also just do it like this, right? I mean, nothing has to be written in stone, but the original mudra that, or hand gesture that the yogis use is this particular one. So I just wanted to show you that, so I don't have to cue that during the breathing practice. So now I invite you to find a nice comfortable seat. I'm scooting out of the sun here a little bit. There's just one little crack. And if a seat is not auspicious for you this evening, you could also choose to lie down, just as long as you can still access this hand movement. If you do pick a seat, make sure it's a seat that's comfortable for your hips. So make sure your hips are higher than your knees. This might require a blanket like what I'm showing here. You might have to double it up. The big thing is you really want to rest your weight not just on your seat, but on your legs. And for that, you want contact of the legs with the ground. This also stabilizes your spine. So this is the sattvic way to sit for a long time, right? Is to really honor the alignment of your body. And you could even use a block to sit on if you wanted to. Once you have figured out which position you want to choose, I invite you to close your eyes or to find a downward gaze. And to draw your attention inward. I invite you to find a comfortable seat by wiggling yourself into the earth. Little small movements can create a sense of comfort and a sense of settledness in your body that will be helpful to you as you're sitting here. And so just notice if there are any little movements or adjustments that you can make in your seat, in the way you hold your arms, in the way you hold your spine, in the way you draw your crown up toward the sky, that brings greater comfort. Gently scan your body from top to bottom or bottom to top one more time to notice if there are any places in your embodied self in need of a bit of nurturing, a bit of support as you settle into your seat. And know that you can always make physical adjustments throughout the practice to honor the needs of your embodied self. And so hold your physical being in your awareness as you gently begin to draw attention to the breath. Noticing for the moment how the breath naturally is moving through you. Noticing the nature of your inhalations and exhalations. As they travel into and out of your body. Maybe you're tuning in to the slight sense of expansiveness that arrives with the inhalation. And that sense of drawing in, of contracting with the exhalation. Maybe noticing that link of the inhalation to motion to activation, to rajas. And maybe noticing the link of the exhalation to stability, to stillness, to the branches of your parasympathetic nervous system, your tamas and your sattva. Notice if there are little hitches or glitches in the breath. And explore if there's anything that could be done to smooth the breath to find a slightly more easeful way of taking in the inhalation and of releasing the exhalation. Not over-efforting in any way, but noticing if something emerges. If your mind wants to wander away from the breath, gently guide it back. Invite your mind to be curious about how the breath is moving through you. Invite the mind to be in full participation with the breath, to be engaged and curious. And then go ahead and bring your hand into the mudra that I showed you, folding the peace fingers to the palm, and then lifting the hand toward your nose. Gently rest the hand, and then close your right nostril, and gently breathe in through the left. When you're at the top of the breath, switch fingers so that you're now compressing the left nostril so that you will breathe out through the right. Breathe in through the right. And then at the top of the breath, yet again switch fingers, closing the right nostril so you can breathe out through the left. Breathing back in through the left, switching fingers, breathing out through the right. This is the sequence. You are switching fingers every time you are at the top of the breath, every time the inhalation transforms into the exhalation. So that you are exhaling and then inhaling on one side, and then exhaling and inhaling on the other side. If you lose your spot, just start over, inhaling through the left, switching, exhaling, and then inhaling through the right, and so on. Use your own breath cycle, your own natural breathing here. You might notice that it's more challenging for you to breathe through one or the other of your two nostrils. We have natural rhythms over the course of the day in the dominance of the nostril through which we take in most of our breath. And so if you have a dominance of one side over the other right now, you will notice this as you breathe. This breath harmonizes the right and left hemisphere of your brain. It calms the mind, it soothes the body, and it balances your nervous system. It balances the energy channels in your body. It balances rajas and tamas. Balances active and passive. And through that balancing of these opposing forces of nature, this breath stabilizes your body, your energy, your mind. If your mind wanders away, bring it back. Exhaling and inhaling through one nostril, switching, exhaling and inhaling through the other. Take 2 to 4 more cycles of this alternate nostril breathing. And then the next time you have inhaled through the right nostril, make one more change. Exhale through the left, and then let go of your hand gesture. Relax your hand back to your lap and breathe your natural breath through both nostrils. And tune in for a moment. Has your breath changed at all? Is it flowing differently now? There may or may not be a change, so be open to whatever shows up. No expectations, no judgment. And then I invite you to draw your palms together at your heart, or to place your palms at your heart center, or to place them on your thigh, whatever is auspicious for you, as you bow your head to heart center. Invite an intention to emerge for your time on the mat today. And if it feels appropriate and auspicious, use your inhalation to seal that intention into your heart. And then use your exhalation to share that intention out into your world. And then release your hands if they were lifted, open your eyes if they were closed, and lift your gaze. And we will come to standing. So you might remove your props off of your mat. And we will start with a few movements to warm the body today. So I invite you to ground into your feet, feeling that sense of grounding and firmness that can come from tamas, the rooting to the earth. And then feel the rebound from that as activity that allows you to begin to move. So that with the inhalation, you stretch your arms overhead. And with the exhalation, you reground. Repeat this with your own breath cycle for a few rounds. Inhaling, rising to the challenge. Exhaling, grounding and settling. And really feel that sense of difference between the lifting, the rising, and the lowering and settling. This is a balanced action right here. This combination of activating yourself as you lift, and then the stilling of that activation as you lower. We'll do this 2 more times. Then let the arms travel up yet again with the inhalation. And then, actually, bring the arms back down, sorry. It's easier to start this with the arms down. So we're going to do some side bends here. We will start by bending to the right, and you'll draw the left hand into your left armpit as you bend to the right, and then the right hand into the right armpit. And so this is sort of a pendulum motion that you're creating with your body. You're inhaling as you go left, and you're exhaling as you go right. And so this is a very activating movement. You might even call it somewhat rajasic, depending on how quickly you move. And so use your own breath cycle to determine that. And then if you really want to play with this, you can free the movement from the coordination with the breath and begin to move more quickly. But do this very mindfully and thoughtfully about what your body wants here. For some bodies, fast movement is just not all that auspicious. And so you decide how quickly or slowly you move through this little kriya, this little yogic action that mobilizes your resources, that gets you ready to meet challenge, kind of moves you into this more sympathetic nervous system state of activation. If you bring kriyas like this into your daily home practice, you might engage in a movement like this for 3 to 5 minutes to really feel the effect on your nervous system. We won't take that long with this kriya in this class, so take a few more rounds, begin to slow it down. Let the movement of the hands stop first, and then gently begin to slow the movement of the torso. Draw your hands together at your heart, either palms touching each other or your chest, and close your eyes if you feel able. Your own balance will tell you whether closed eyes are auspicious or whether you want a downward gaze to the floor. And feel your own heartbeat. Feel your rajas here, feel your activation in your nervous system. You invited the mobilization side of your way of being in nature, so feel that. Feel the reverberations of that in your body to become familiar. Take a few rounds of breath here, and you might notice that gently your system resets itself. Your system comes back to stability. We are hardwired to be capable to do this. Bursts of energy, followed by stilling and grounding. Feel this re-regulation in your nervous system. And learn to trust your own ability to re-stabilize yourself. And then gently release your hands to your side, and we'll take the next movement. This is called knocking on the doors of life. It's another kriya. It's also a twisting motion. And so I invite you to have quite a bend in your knees to protect the low back. I'll show the motion from the front first and then I'll turn around so you can see what it looks like in the back. So you'll exhale and twist. Inhale, come forward, exhale and twist. And again, at the beginning, you might really marry this movement to breath, and then you might unhook them as you begin to move more quickly, or maybe you even let the breath move more quickly through you. So I'll let you see what I'm doing in the back. I'm lightly tapping the area of my adrenal glands, which sit at the top of the kidneys. And it's your adrenal glands, I'll turn back around, that release cortisol, that get you ready to become active, to become mobile. In the front, there's a very light tapping at your opposite chest. And then here too, you can play with your own speed. You can move very slowly and gently with the breath, or you can speed it up a little bit. And you can even let the breath become forceful. Just do a few more rounds. You can begin to slow it down if you did speed it up. And then let the arms begin to just swing rather than tap. And slowly let the movement just peter out here. And then once again, return your palms either together at the heart or on your chest. Cast your eyes downward for a soft gaze on the floor, or close them. And feel your own sense of activation here. And become aware that underneath that sense of activation, underneath that rajas, there is still the presence of sattva. You are stable, you are standing firmly on your 2 feet, your tamas is present as well. And so even though rajas is more notable right now because we activated the sympathetic nervous system, the parasympathetic nervous system is still present, it's still functioning as well, offering you stillness, grounding, and stability and connection. That's the beauty of your autonomic nervous system, and it's the beauty of the gunas. Their collaboration to let you be responsive to whatever life throws your way. And then release your hands, open your eyes if they were closed. And we'll take one final kriya. This is a standing cat and cow. You're quite likely very familiar with this. Here too, you might invite a slight bend into the knees, especially if you have low back issues. And the movement here is that with an inhalation, you open the heart. With an exhalation, you move forward. So I'll show this from the side. So there's a slight back bend here, and then a slight forward fold. You inhale, opening yourself up. You exhale to fold. This is a beautiful combination of a more rajasic inhale, opening, and then a more tamasic rounding and surrendering. And so this particular kriya creates balance in and of itself. So let yourself flow here with your own breath. You make the decision of how quickly or slowly you want to move, depending on your own need for nervous system regulation. if your mind wants to wander away here, invite it back, invite it to be present for this beautiful flow of body and breath. And then gently begin to slow this down. Maybe just 2 more rounds, maybe 1, depending on your breath cycle. And then once again, bring your palms to your preferred location. Cast the eyes downward. Or close them. And rest in your own stable presence here. Rest in the knowledge that you are capable of activating to fight, to flee when necessary. That you are capable of grounding, of stilling yourself when that's the more auspicious response. To rest, recuperate, repair. And to realize that at the heart of it all, you are stable, luminous, connected, in relationship. And then release your hands. And have your 2 blocks available at the top of your mat. And stand about a torso's length distance from your 2 blocks. And then with your inhalation, open yourself up to your own capacity to activate. And as you exhale, ground and lower yourself. Hands reaching the blocks, planting themselves, finding grounding, finding stability here. Find that luminous way of being in this position so that you feel action through the feet. You might even lift your toes here. Draw the kneecaps toward the hips. Engage your muscles onto your legs. See if you can truly extend the knees here. You might need to lift up a little bit more. For that to happen, you could have your hands on a chair, either on the seat of a chair or even on the back of a chair. And then if that doesn't work to have your knees extended, you can bring a slight bend into the knee and yet still activate the musculature on the legs so that you feel the lift through the legs and the grounding through the hands. And then as you rest here in this half lift, get a sense of the shape of your body from the inside out. Notice that you are making close to a 90-degree angle here at your hip joint. Notice that your spine is in neutral. Notice that the weight bearing of your chest here is easiest if you draw the belly in toward the spine just a little bit, and maybe even drawing the pelvic floor up and in. Your back muscles are firing. You're engaged, you're active. You're creating enough rudderless here to hold this position, and you're creating grounding through the feet. And you are inviting grounding through the hands here, all the while finding harmony in stability. If you feel comfortable, you might close your eyes here and really feel and watch your body from the inside out. Create a neuromuscular memory of this particular body shape. because we will be repeating it over and over and over today. And so the more you can commit this shape to memory, the more sattvically the rest of your practice might unfold. From here on, wait the hands for a moment and see if you can hold this shape without resting on the hands. You could even choose to bring the arms out to the side, like Superwoman, Superman, airplane, whatever you want to call this position of the arms. And just notice the extra demands on your stabilizers here to hold you in space. With your next inhalation, rise all the way up, and then draw the hands to your heart and release them to your side. From here, we will use the wall for the first time. And what we will do is we will take this same shape that we just took with the blocks supporting us at the wall. And so I will show this here. Yeah, I think you can see me fine. So you'll walk about a torso's and arm lengths away from the wall. Your feet can be hip distance or a little bit wider. You'll have more stability and greater ease in the back body if the legs are a little bit wider. So your choice of variation, only you can know how open your muscles are today and how comfortable you are. And then let yourself come forward so that you're leaning into the wall on your hands, and find your grounding through your feet and your hands as you slide the hips back so that they end up being directly above the ankles. So your legs are stacked. Knees above ankles, hips above knees. You may have to adjust the distance to the wall to create that same 90-degree angle that we just had on the blocks, now with the hands at the wall. And then really press your hands into the wall, press your feet into the ground. Create that stability of sattva, yet harmony, connecting into your own layers, into your body, into your breath. Bringing the mind into the equation as you find this L-shaped position in this orientation in space. Notice how this time, the same shape feels a little bit different because the hands are now grounding into the wall in front of you. This changes the demand characteristics, and then just notice if a different guna comes up for you. Maybe now you're fighting the pose, or maybe now you want to flee and get out of this pose, or maybe now you have the temptation to just sort of collapse or buckle into the pose. Just notice what shows up. And then maybe experiment with how you can transform any excess rajas or tamas into sattva, into that harmony, that stability, that connection to yourself. So yes, this is a long hold. You can always step out of it if it's too much for you. We'll take 2 more rounds of breath. Really engage your muscles here. Don't collapse. Don't become tamasic. Maybe even lift your toes to remind yourself, oh, we want harmony. And then go ahead and let the hips come forward. Lean yourself back into the wall. Step 1 foot forward. Step the other foot forward. And bring yourself back to the mat if you had to leave the mat to come to your wall. We will take the same shape again in yet another orientation in space. From here, I invite you to inhale the arms up. Exhale and once again fold forward. This time, you will walk your hands out in front of you or your feet out back of you, depending on where you were on your mat, to come into a downward dog. It's the same shape. So check your neuromuscular memory. How did I align into this L-shaped position in the forward fold or the half lift? And then how did I do it at the wall? How can I recreate this in this different orientation in space? So how can you create sattva here? How can you be stable?
Not buckling, but also not fighting or fleeing from the pose. So not bracing to be there, but being stable, finding harmony, finding balance. This will be another long hold. You can always come to the knees and come into puppy's pose. Very similar arrangement of the body, but a little less fighting against gravity. So give yourself permission to find your own variations, to make this a posture or a shape that can be harmonious for you, stable, where you're not either giving up, buckling or collapsing into tamasana, or you're also not fighting with the pose. If you want more here, if you want to actually play a little bit with different weight bearing, you could lift one leg up to make a straight line from the fingertips to the toes. Notice how this shifts the demand to create stability or to maintain it. How can you create harmony here? And are you noticing your natures? What happened when you tried this? If you did do that particular variation, then switch sides. Try it on the other side. See how that changes the demand characteristics of this shape. What shows up? Are you fighting? Are you collapsing? Or can you find harmony? Can you find a luminous state here? A place of balance, of connection, maybe even joy. And if you had that leg lifted, go ahead and lower it. And then begin to walk your feet toward your hands. End up with the feet mat width apart. Come into a squat. I'll shift, you don't have to, so you can see. And let yourself rest here for a moment. If your thumb or hands can touch to your heart, you might want to do that to really feel your own heartbeat. But you can also stretch the arms out in front of you if that creates a more stable pose for you. So just notice which variation allows you to recenter, allows you to find harmony, stability, sattva. And what are the reverberations that you are still feeling here from your downward dog? I know for me, there's still a reverberation of rajas, of effort. So just notice which nature is showing up for you. And then from here, make sure you have plenty of runway behind you. And I'll invite you to choose your way of touching down here. You can bring the hands behind you and support yourself as you come down. You can keep the hands at your heart as you touch down. Or you can stretch your arms out in front of you as you touch down. If you had stability, you won't roll back, but sometimes this happens, and that's kind of fun. That's just kind of a buckling, a little bit of tamas taking over, turn it into something fun, and then come to a seat. So for this next shape, I invite you to find a blanket to bring under your sits bones, so that you can access a nice neutral spine. Stretch your legs out in front of you. And then
Notice you're in the same shape yet again. This time there might be a greater sense of ease. Your arms can relax by your side. But find engagement in the legs, maybe by pulling the toes toward the nose. Figuratively, not quite literal here, right? And feel this shape yet again from the inside out. Create that same neuromuscular imprint that you took when we were in the half lift and when we were at the wall. And just notice what's different here, what changes are necessary here, which additional muscles might need to fire to hold the core upright now, to hold your torso upright. And then notice which nature is coming out for you as you're moving into this particular pose. Is there a tendency to want to just get tamasic and slump into it? Or is there a sort of rajasic urge to do more, to not just sit there? Or can you find a luminous expression of stack pose? If you feel like you're stable and not already over-efforting, you might actually lift the arms up. If you're efforting, however, already, then that might not be auspicious, right, to finding stability. So be honest with yourself. How can you make sure that your nature that emerges here is harmonious and connected? Notice what's happening in your pelvic floor, and notice if it's buckling, if tamas is settling in, and invite it to become sattvic by drawing upward slightly. Your arms can be by your side. They do not have to be lifted. We're yet again in a fairly long hold to feel the imprint of this L shape. If your arms are still lifted, go ahead and release them to your side. And then start by bending the knees. We will come into yet another L shape, another orientation in space. We will take some variations of boat pose. You can leave the blanket behind you. You can scoot it away, depending on what feels better for you. We'll start with this variation, where you're actually holding on to your thighs and your shins are parallel to the floor. You can see I have the same L shape at my hips, right? I can make this posture a little bit more stable and harmonious by holding onto my legs here. This would be a very hard thing to hold for a long time, and so I'm offering you variations. If you would like, you can actually experiment with the straight legs here, either toes pointed or flexed. You'll see that this creates quite a different set of demands for your body, so experiment with both variations. And if that's too much, if you're realizing now you're fighting or trying to flee the pose or you're going to buckle any moment, then bring the legs down. Make the shins parallel to the floor. Be honest with yourself here. How can you hold this shape or some variation of it in a harmonious, connected way? And then go ahead and release it down and shake it out just a little bit. We're going to do boat pose one more time so that you can experiment with yet additional variations if you would like. We'll start in the same way though. The pose will probably be more sattvic for you if all of you is present for it. Not in an over-efforting, gripping sort of way, but in a stabilizing way. So that pelvic floor, the belly, they might really be able to help you find a sense of stability here. So that you don't have the temptation to just collapse into tamas. or the grasping or gripping of rajas. From here, if you want to experiment with coming into the full L shape by bringing the arms overhead, you might try that. Or you can row your boat. Play. This is nice and stable, right? The movement and the grounding combine into a nice harmonious expression. So play with any variation that feels auspicious and stable and sattvic in this moment. And then release down. Scoot your way back. And take a moment to return the hands to your heart. And invite your nervous system to settle. Wipe the slate clean. Connect to your inner light, your luminosity. And then release the hands. Now we will come back to the wall. We will stay in Dandasana. I will show this at my wall. And so you'll be sitting at the wall now, and you'll feel, to begin with, the grounding into the earth of the whole back body, the legs, the heels on the floor, and then the back of the head at the wall. So feel your Dandasana here and notice the difference of this particular shape, staff pose, compared to when you took it a few moments ago without the support of the wall. And just notice if anything changed. Maybe nothing changed. This might be harder for you. So just notice. And then we'll add the challenge of lifting the arms. And notice here what happens. Can the hands reach the wall without fight? Or is the wall just too far away for your hands? Are you making up for that by maybe buckling in the low back? Just notice. This has lots to do with the anatomy of your shoulder joint. And so it really is an exercise here of mindfulness, of awareness of what's happening in your body. And if you notice that your hands can't reach the wall, scoot your seat forward away from the wall until the hands come to rest very naturally at the wall, even if that means you're no longer making contact with the wall with your pelvis. This accommodates for any tightness in the shoulders. This accommodates for the construction of your shoulder joint, which we're all different. So each shoulder joint is going to be different. In fact, your two shoulder joints side to side might be different. So why am I having you hold this? Well, you can actually descend your arms. What I'd like you to do now is to lean forward, and if you have something like a block or a strap or a shirt, anything, mark the spot on the floor in front of you where your heels were or are right now. So you could just like put the strap in line with the heel. Or if you have a pattern on your floor or on your mat, just remember where your heels were and be honest about that spot. And then go ahead and bring the palms of your hands to that spot. And your feet are now at the wall. So you're in tabletop, quite likely a slightly too tight tabletop, but maybe not. From here, we will press up into down dog. The bottoms of your feet will be at the wall. So this is kind of a short down dog. This may be your shape. This may be where you stay.
Or maybe you come here, shoulders above the arms into sort of a combination of down dog and tabletop. If this is really hard on your wrists, you might need a blanket to make a less acute angle in your wrist. From here, if you're interested in playing a little bit more in creating yet another L shape in another orientation in space, step one foot up the wall, pretty high, then step the other foot up the wall, and then walk the feet down until you are in that same L shape that you had in your half lift, in your down dog, in your dandasana, in your boat pose. Find your stability here, or find a different variation. And if you want, you can even take that variation we took in down dog where you're stretching one leg up. And the other leg up. When you've enjoyed as much of this as you can stand, you can go ahead and step down and then come into a child's pose to let your system re-regulate. Feel your breath returning to its sattvic state. Recognizing your incredible capacity for resilience, for returning to stability after challenge. Taking 2 to 4 more rounds of breath, supporting yourself in any variation of child's pose that feels auspicious. And then gently slide the hands under the shoulders and use the support of your arms to press yourself back up, coming to rocks pose. And then swing the hips to one side, facing yet again toward the short end of your mat. Have your strap handy. We have one more orientation in space that we need in which to create our L shape. And we will roll down onto our back for that orientation. If you know you have a sensitive back, you can always bring a blanket under your torso. So spreading it out like this and rolling yourself onto the blanket. To begin with, reach the arms up and overhead. Stretch yourself long by walking the hips away from the shoulders, just in case a little bit of compression snuck into the body during your whichever variation of half handstand or down dog or tabletop down dog you chose at the wall. And then draw the knees into your chest and catch the feet with your strap. The most auspicious placement for the strap is the balls of the feet, but it's not a hugely important thing that it's placed in some particular space. And then use the strap here to help support you into, ta-da, your L shape. in yet another orientation in space. If your core is strong, if you feel stable and harmonious and you don't need the strap, by all means you can release it. But also give yourself the pleasure of the strap. It's really nice to have something to press the feet against. Helps you activate the legs. So if you have a tendency to want to collapse into tamas here, maybe you need the strap so that you can have a little bit of activation. So just notice what your tendency is here and see if you can balance yourself out, if you can make yourself stable and harmonious and luminous, ready for connection. If you are not holding on to the strap, you could bring the arms up and overhead onto the floor to hold this beautiful L shape yet again. And then if you want to play with that one-legged variation, you can bring one leg to the ground and have one leg lifted. Take a couple of breaths and then switch sides. Other leg comes down. Maybe notice if your two sides are different. And lift up yet again. Then from here, yogi's choice, you can lower both legs down slowly, or you can lift one leg down and then the other leg down, or you can bend the knees. Mindfully coming back to the earth for a bit of cooling down. Sorry, I keep hitting my bookshelf. I have to relocate myself a little bit. And from here, I invite you to bring your feet mat width distance apart. And to maybe begin to windshield wiper, moving both knees to one side and then to the other side. They don't have to come anywhere close to the ground. This can be a very mild range of motion. Right up here, just so you can really feel yourself moving across the sacrum, across the two SI joints as you're releasing the low back. Just a little bit here. From here, you might choose to hug your knees in for a moment, rocking side to side, or maybe drawing circles. You can intuit what your body might need to feel harmonious, to feel luminous in this moment. Maybe a happy baby presents itself. Just notice and play for a moment in preparation for releasing into your final resting position. And as you continue to wiggle and move a little bit here, I'll talk about the two choices you have for Shavasana today. You can take the usual position for Shavasana, flat on your back, maybe a lift under the knees or a lift under the head. Or you can come into your L shape one more time in a legs up the wall position. If you choose the legs up the wall, you might choose to actually link your legs to make this variation a little bit more easeful with a strap around the legs. If that feels constricting or challenging or in any way inappropriate, then of course you won't do that. You don't have to have the strap. And you actually scoot yourself to a wall. So you would come to the wall like this and then swing the legs up, so that you're in that same L-shaped position that you just took on the mat, but this time your legs are resting at the wall. Your arms probably won't be overhead, they'll be at your side, just like they would be in Shavasana. So you can choose your Shavasana position based on your own sense of your body, your own needs, to be either in this L shape or to be on your back. Or you might start out in the L shape and then transition to your back. It's really your choice.
there's one thing that's better than the other. It's just all options. Whichever shape you have chosen, settle yourself into it. Let yourself ground through the back body. Let yourself move into stillness. Invite a sense of ease and letting go. You might even scan your body, top to bottom, bottom to top, to notice if there are places of unease, and gently direct your breath to those places to invite a sense of letting go, or a sense of acceptance, a sense of awareness. As you continue to ground, gently begin to draw your attention to your heart center. That same place where we kept checking our nervous system response, our capacity to re-regulate, to be resilient. Draw your attention to that very spot at the center of your chest, behind the sternum. And breathe into that spot. Breathe a luminous energy into the very core of your being. Creating the sense of a gentle light glowing at the center of your chest, at your yogic heart. A luminous glow, soft and steady. A luminous glow reflecting your capacity for sattva. Your capacity to connect to others in relationship. Your capacity to bring light into your own life and into the life of others. Continue to breathe into that luminous glow that is your yogic heart. And with each inhalation, notice how this glow, this luminous light, begins to expand, to grow inside your chest. With each inhalation, the glow deepens. With each exhalation, the glow expands further until perhaps the very edges of this luminous glow touch the edges of your physical being, expanding through your entire torso. As you continue to breathe, maybe that light expands into your neck and your head, your arms, your hands, your legs, your feet. Your entire embodied self is lit up, luminous, glowing. And as you continue to breathe, that glow moves beyond the edges of your own physical being. A glowing light, a glowing energy moving outward beyond the expanse of your body. Your luminosity is shining through. Your luminous energy is expanding outward, filling more and more space around you. Light glowing to fill perhaps the entire area around you. Filling your room, your home. With each inhalation, you continue to nurture this light. With each exhalation, you expand it outward, enveloping your family, your loved ones, in your luminous light. Nurturing the light with your inhalation, you expand it further out. Enveloping now your family, your friends, your community. All the people in your community, friends, strangers. Let that light continue to travel outward any amount. Maybe your lights touch the lights of the other students in this class, creating a community across the distance. Allowing your luminous glow to travel perhaps around the world. As you inhale to nurture your own capacity to be a guiding light, to be luminous, to be stable, harmonious, sattvic. And exhaling, knowing that that luminosity that you bring into the world can light other fires. It can invite luminosity in the people around you, and the people around them, and the people around them in perpetuity. Take a few more rounds of breath, very consciously and attentively. And then gently bring that light closer to you. Call it back toward your own heart. Not in a way of contracting, but in a way of keeping it safe. A way of letting it nurture you, nurture your own sattva, your own resilience, your own capacity to create harmony, to create connection. Until the light is all the way in your chest, back in your yogic heart, glowing softly. And here you can let go of the light. You can let go of the breath. You can let go of your body. I invite you to release into this moment. I invite you to release into this particular space. I invite you into a few minutes of silence. Gently invite your senses to awaken. Perhaps noticing the sounds in your environment. Perhaps feeling the air on your skin. Perhaps noticing scents or aromas around you. Consciously begin to feel the earth beneath you. And if you are still in legs up the wall, gently release your your belt and begin to bend your knees. And then all of you gently begin a transition to your right side, rolling yourself to the right, giving yourself the pleasure of gradual movement, of resting for a moment on your right side, reconnecting, stabilizing, finding harmony, and a few breaths. Whenever you feel ready to transition to a seat, use the support from your left hand and arm to press yourself up, and to help yourself pivot back to a seated shape. Choose whichever hand position seems auspicious to you in this moment. Maybe palms facing up on your thighs, resting in your lap, palms together at the heart or on the chest. And gently bow your head to your heart. Acknowledge for a moment these different ways you have of showing up in the world. The capacity to be resiliently activated and mobile when there's threat or challenge that requires you to fight or flee or just actively meet a difficult situation. The grounding or the stillness that invites your system to repair and rest and support itself, and that may at times collapse when outer demands are too traumatic or too demanding. And that place of luminous resilience, of harmonious stability that allows you to be connected to other beings, that allows you to be fully aware and present in relationship. I invite you to reconnect to the intention that you set earlier today for this practice. And either recommit yourself to that intention or invite a new intention to emerge that you can take with you off the mat. As always, thank you so much for practicing with me. It's a pleasure and an honor and a joy. Thank you.